Formula One comes to Hungary for a remarkably different challenge here at the Hungaroring compared to Silverstone. Red Bull are chasing history. The fight for best of the rest intensifies. And a certain Australian is back on the F1 grid. Welcome to the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend warm-up. Hello and welcome to a warm and breezy paddock here in Hungary, and a big welcome to Alex Brundle and to Sam Collins alongside me. Chaps, here we are in Hungary, and it's been a busy old week in the world of F1, hasn't it?
Very busy week, multiple headlines. Nyck de Vries out at AlphaTauri, over 30-time podium finisher Daniel Ricciardo back on the grid, but so many more stories to cover before we go racing here in Hungary, Laura.
Yeah, we're going to delve into it. Thanks, Alex. And Sam, so nice to see you in person and not through the magic of television. Me here and you in a studio.
Yeah, I feel like I should turn around and press a button and just draw some yellow lines on something. But yeah, you're right. Every single time I've opened my laptop in the last couple of weeks, there's been some other big F1 news breaking and some big events, some of which we weren't even invited to.
I know. It's absolutely crazy, isn't it? And therefore, we must say, what a week for Lawrence Barretto, our news hound dog here on the ground, to have off. We must say a huge congratulations to Lawrence Barretto, who has got married. He had the most wonderful day, so congrats to you, Lawrence. Enjoy your honeymoon. Don't worry, we'll pick up the slack for you, mate. All good. But it has been such a busy week in the F1 world. Get in touch, hashtag F1 Live, with your messages of congratulations to Lawrence, and indeed your thoughts on all that is about to unfold. Before we go into Hungary, though, let's take a little look back at Silverstone. Normally, Lawrence Barretto is tasked with the joy of recapping a race in 60 seconds. Sam Collins, you're here in front of us in person. You are stepping up. 3, 2, 1, Silverstone in 60. Off you go.
Of course, they pick on the person who wasn't actually at the track for the race, but it was a really exciting British Grand Prix, and the Team Papaya ganged up on Max Verstappen at the start. Lando Norris leading the Grand Prix, at least for a few laps before car number one, assumed position number one. He disappeared off to the end of the Grand Prix and, of course, won. But behind him, there was all sorts of shenanigans. The weather came to play a role. Just typical British summer day. The rain came down, everybody was on the wrong tyres. They had to change tyres around. And we ended up with a bit of a mixed-up pack. Alex Albon fighting with the Ferraris for track position. The Williams looked great all weekend. Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, great scraps throughout the field, but we ended up with a just really fantastic race. Looking back through the field, though, there were a few surprises. One big surprise, though, was not the failure of a Ferrari engine. Its internal combustion becoming external, and Ferrari lost another engine, another power unit, and that will be a big factor going through the rest of the season.
Wow, I am super impressed. Very impressed with you, Sam Collins. I have to say that was done without a return monitor as well. So take note, Will Buxton, Lawrence Barretto when they return. Alex, it was quite the race in Silverstone. Yes, Sam, sorry.
So you're saying Barretto cheats at this and gets to watch the race?
He does.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm going to say it right now. He's not here to defend himself. He does. Alex, yeah, quite the race here in Silverstone. A very different track to what we have here in Hungary, however.
Yeah, a massively different challenge here in Hungary. Tight, twisty corners, a much slower average speed. Drivers will be looking for traction in the same way we were looking for Sam Collins' notes a few moments ago. And it's going to bring different cars to the fore in terms of the general performance of the field here, which is going to be really exciting to watch.
Yeah, it really is. But the news coming into this weekend is that Nyck de Vries is no longer part of AlphaTauri nor the Red Bull family, and he has been replaced on the grid for the next half of this season for Daniel Ricciardo. Sam Collins, 10 races is all Nyck de Vries had to prove himself. He didn't even get a chance to get to his home race in Zandvoort. How harsh a decision is this, do you feel?
I do feel it's quite harsh. It seems so early for making a driver's swap. We know Red Bull have got form for doing this in both of their teams. That's how Max Verstappen came in and got his first race win after an early switcheroo. I don't know. I feel that the other Dutchman didn't get a chance to really prove what he could do in what is clearly quite a difficult racing car.
He's a Formula 2 champion. He's a Formula E champion. He's got experience. He was the Mercedes reserve driver for a stint as well. And it was a real classy response from de Vries, wasn't it, on his social media too, Alex?
Yeah, extremely classy response in the face of some reports claiming he said some things which he quite clearly and declared that he didn't say with regards to Red Bull and so on. It's a really harsh decision on Nyck de Vries. He has a better qualifying record against Yuki Tsunoda than, for example, Oscar Piastri has against Lando Norris this year. But I think the factors at play, he's not a point scorer so far, losing out 8-2 to Yuki Tsunoda. and it just didn't look good at moments, did it, for Nick de Vries? He will be able to continue his career in Formula E, in the World Endurance Championship, where he's extremely highly regarded, and it will drop into a race seat somewhere. But I think with that AlphaTauri being as difficult as it's been throughout this year, they didn't really give him a fair crack of the whip, to be honest, over 10 races.
Yeah, 10 races certainly won't define Nick de Vries' career, and we all wish him the very best. Yuki Tsunoda, in fact, saying that he very much saw him as a friend and learnt from him too. So he will now be alongside Daniel Ricciardo, who has made his way back to the grid, 10 years on, come full circle back at AlphaTauri. Your thoughts, your immediate reaction to the news?
My immediate reaction is wow, and how are the rest of the driver lineup going to react to that news? And then my second reaction as a driver is, this is a really difficult race to come back into. 14 corners of the Hungaroring. You're constantly turning around here. Yeah, it's only a little while since he's been out of a Formula One car, but the body needs to adapt. And it's an important weekend not to underestimate for Daniel Ricciardo, I think, jumping back in the car with all the physicalities that heat in here in Hungaroring.
Yeah, it's a super tough race, isn't it? Well, it's going to be a real point of comparison now looking ahead compared to Yuki Tsunoda for Daniel Ricciardo. And I caught up with Yuki ahead of this weekend a bit earlier on. Well, Yuki, you have a new teammate coming into this weekend. What are your thoughts as Daniel Ricciardo replaces Nick de Vries?
Yeah, first of all, it's a bit sad. There's a side that is not a bit sad that Nick is leaving. He gave definitely positives to teams and me personally. So yeah, it's a shame. And for Daniel, I think he's experienced a lot from past years. He achieved multiple successful seasons. So I think good for the team. Good for the. We can learn lots of things from his experience, make our car better, make our team environment itself, learn from him, so that's good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think I can see lots of things from him. But at the same time, I'll do same as usual. Doesn't make much difference anyway. So yeah, I'm good.
All business as usual then for Yuki Tsunoda ahead of this weekend. He'll be very much focusing on his own performance as he hopes that some of the upgrades AlphaTauri have brought in recent races will lift the team ideally into the points. He will want more points, and now he's got a new teammate to pit himself against as well. Sam, coming to you on that AlphaTauri, it has not looked it's not looked easy to drive so far this season. It has looked difficult to drive. How will these upgrades perform here, do you believe, and how much more will it suit this circuit?
Well, a lot of the problem with the AlphaTauri is low-speed corners, which describes this circuit perfectly. It's just a collection of low-speed corners and no real straights between them. The AlphaTauri is not easy to drive. There's been a lot of talk about the big package of upgrades they're going to be bringing here. I think a lot of that is based on a lot of people reading an article on the F1 website and not noticing the bit that says a lot of those upgrades were introduced last time out in Silverstone. And actually the biggest upgrade for AlphaTauri seems to be its Australian driver. And the team were actually doing quite an interesting test in the pit lane earlier on, because each new driver into a car has to prove that they can get out of the car in just 5 seconds. Daniel Ricciardo just achieved that this evening, just before we came on air. Big round of applause, and it reminded me of the Formula Student teams at Silverstone, who are having to do the exact same thing at the moment as well. So AlphaTauri, the upgrades, they are aimed at that low-speed cornering. It should help, but the Silverstone package didn't work, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, Yuki very much hoping that they will start to see some of those improvements they desperately need here. But as Alex, you mentioned, it's a very tough race here, not least the heat, the brakes, the cooling. I have to say, here in the paddock coming in, there has been a buzz of activity, a buzz of passion and excitement around Daniel Ricciardo returning here. Earlier on, I was just a little bit further up the paddock and I saw a rush of people, I'm going to say sprinting down this paddock after Daniel Ricciardo. Such is the excitement around his return. But as you say, a super hard race for him to just drop in on.
It's a pressurising thing to just jump in mid-season. Everyone else is up to speed. Yeah, he'll be doing he'll have been doing a little bit of sim work all the way through the year for Red Bull. But I doubt his focus has actually been further down the field. Daniel Ricciardo, of course, coming in on loan from Red Bull to this race. And the expectation, the immediate measurement of Formula One will be there against Yuki Tsunoda, jumping into a car which is not set up for him. He hasn't developed. It's set up for Nick de Vries. And so it's going to be a really tough ask to jump in and deliver the expectation that deliver the performance you might expect from an 8-time Grand Prix winner.
Yeah, absolutely. And Daniel Ricciardo very much saying that as long as the car is balanced here, he'll be able to really begin to develop it and start to get the best from it. Christian Horner very keen to point out Daniel is on loan to AlphaTauri from Red Bull, and that the pressure is not on Sergio Perez looking at the 2024 seat. Read into that what you will. I know there's plenty of speculation out there as the pressure does mount on Checo, but 2025 is a viable option for Daniel Ricciardo.
I think Red Bull operate a sort of a driver roster system, so all of those drivers in either team are assigned to Red Bull, not to AlphaTauri or to Red Bull Racing. Liam Lawson, for example, he's racing for Red Bull but in Japan. So I think they can muddle them all around and drop the drivers in where they want to drop them in, and that's sort of what's happened here. Daniel's just rejoined that roster of drivers, so I think that's a situation. I think the only reason he was able to hop into the AlphaTauri, though, is that was a chassis that was designed around Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda, and actually, if it had been designed around Nick de Vries and Yuki Tsunoda, he probably wouldn't be able to jump in because he's too tall. But he's only 2 centimetres taller than Pierre Gasly, and that's why he was able to jump in at short notice. I think Red Bull don't design the car around all of their drivers. Can he drive the RB19? I'm not sure.
We shall see. Well, he certainly could in the Pirelli tyre testing. According to some sources, that was a time quick enough to be on the front row at Silverstone, but we'll ignore the track evolution and track conditions entirely. But clearly there's some pace in there for sure. We'll see how Daniel Ricciardo fares for this weekend. Safe to say there is a lot of buzz about it. Sam, I'm glad I have you here in person because we're talking F1 fantasy. I am snapping at your heels, my man. I will get there in the end.
Yeah, I've made some changes to the team. So
I'm going to make my changes as well.
High downforce changes, so you're in trouble.
I'm going to shrink into the background. I'm still that person that's too far behind to join mid-season in the F1 fantasy grid. So enjoy it. Yeah, my team are doing great.
It's never too late to join F1 Fantasy. You can actually replace Nick de Vries. It's so savage saying this, isn't it? If you do have Nick de Vries in your team, it will count as a transfer, but you can take him out, and Daniel Ricciardo is priced at the same. So you can just do a straight swap in and out. Could be a good option for his first race back. Sergio Perez, as we mentioned, he's in that Red Bull seat through to 2024. Pressure is mounting, though, on the Mexican driver as qualifying is proving to be his Achilles heel. We spoke to him a bit earlier on.
So, Sergio, you've given us some really great Sunday drives recently. Coming from a bit further back, how much would you just like a nice, simple weekend, pole, win from pole?
Yeah, that will be quite a bit nicer. So that will be the target for this weekend. Hopefully, make sure we are able to clear up those Saturdays and yeah, just deliver a strong Saturday will be important for us.
Christian Horner has come out in public saying he wants to put an arm around you, make sure you feel supported. How nice is it as a driver to hear those comments and just feel supported in your team garage?
It's great, you know. It's good to at the end of the day we are all human beings and we all react different to different situations. And from my side, yeah, it's important, you know. And I think I know that I have full support of my team. And at the end of the day, I know what I have to do and how I have to deliver. I mean, I'm second in the championship for a reason, you know. I think I've had a great start to the season, but I had a bit of a rough patch that no different to any other driver on the grid. You know, we all have had difficult periods of times, but that's it.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, great words there from Sergio Perez. Very keen to say I'm here to stay and I'm going to weather this bad patch that I'm in at the moment. And Christian Horner equally saying we want to help Checo rediscover that form, certainly on Saturday in qualifying. Now, there has been a bit of buzz about the Red Bull upgrades that are coming here. I'd imagine a few groans from some of the other teams as well. The rumour has it, Sam, coming to you for this one, it will add 0.2 a lap, which is frightening considering the advantage they seem to have already. I saw you had your camera out, your beady eye peeled down the pit lane. What are you seeing from that garage?
Well, I still haven't seen the completed car yet, but what I can say is the side pod is completely different to what we've seen previously. They've gone for a very slit type radiator duct. They've completely redesigned the cooling system. This was not the job of a moment. A lot of people are going, well, what about the wind tunnel time? What about the wind tunnel restriction? I think they've been really, really clever because radiator redesigns don't come out of the wind tunnel allocation. So they've actually got a bit of free upgrade on that, I think. And I think that upgrade, I think it's going to be worth more than 0.2 of a second as the season goes on. However, as we saw with Ferrari at the Spanish Grand Prix, you do a drastic change to a Formula One car, it doesn't always work right away. So perhaps Red Bull have exposed themselves ever so slightly, at least at first.
I mean, they can afford to expose themselves a little bit, can't they? Looking for a 12th consecutive win here to take the record away from McLaren. McLaren, interestingly enough, who can demonstrate a read on this. You know, you take the arbitrary figure. They always say, "Oh, we're going to be 2/10 up the road." That's about what McLaren said they were going to be up the road before Silverstone, and then they made a great big jump, didn't they, forward? So we'll see what that little bit of a cooling versus aero trade-off is for Red Bull. They'll have qualifying pace, they'll have race pace. They certainly had race pace here last year when Max Verstappen charged through from 10th on the grid despite a spin to take victory. So going to be a tough car to beat, but there are a lot of cars that are extremely strong in terms of their mechanical grip, in terms of their mid-range aero performance that might be able to take Red Bull on over the race distance here. We hope, we pray, from a neutral perspective.
Yeah, we want to see a good race, don't we? I tell you what, I was recapping the 21 edition with Esteban Ocon earlier, and my goodness me, that was some race. Red Bull certainly did find qualifying tricky here last year. We'll wait to see what will transpire over the course of the weekend. Mercedes next up, and very much a decent weekend for them in Silverstone. Lewis Hamilton finding his way on to the podium, as they seem to be, Sam. Mercedes there and amongst it. They struggle for pace some weekends, but they're always in the fight, aren't they, for best of the rest?
Yeah, there's this narrative that the Mercedes this year is absolutely awful, and it's not. I know the drivers aren't too happy with it and they're not winning races, but look, it's right up there every single Grand Prix. It might not be qualifying in the top 3 or 4 every single race, but it's always there fighting for a podium at the end of the race. That's what it's all about. That's where the points come in. Now, I know they've been a bit Spartan on podiums actually in the end, but they're getting better. That big upgrade package they bought a few races back, massive change to the car. They've been making a few noises suggesting that they might be able to get a bit more performance out of it at this track, but also the simulation data I've been looking at does show them quite high up and quite close than some of the other cars around. So it could be a bit closer than people think.
Certainly the Mercedes has that Achilles heel of the amount of drag that it produces at the very highest speed and the strength of the medium speed performance. So as you say, Sam, in theory, it should be a much stronger car here.
Yeah, this is one of the slowest speed tracks on the entire calendar. I think second slowest. Just 10 seconds on this track is spent actually driving in a straight line. The rest is cornering. It's going to be a fascinating challenge for our drivers, certainly after Silverstone. And Lewis Hamilton knows how to get the job done here as well. He's an 8-time winner. We can hear from him now.
So Lewis, welcome to the Hungaroring. Such a great track for you over the years. Why do you enjoy this track so much? Is it the kart-like feel that we often talk about here?
I don't know. I think it's just been a track that I've just enjoyed. I love coming to the city is amazing. Just always enjoyed the support is incredible here, and the track it's just one of those classics. It's like Silverstone, just how well they just don't make tracks like they used to, just like they don't make buildings like they used to, you know.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we're here on the back of a very strong Silverstone race for you. Are you confident of bringing that form here, or are the tracks just too different to compare, really?
I'm hoping to bring that performance here. There was a deficit in the last race, so particularly in like high speeds, but in the low speed we were good. So I'm hoping that bodes well for us here.
Yeah, podium for Lewis Hamilton then, a Brit up on the podium at his home race in Silverstone. And Mercedes just a little bit unlucky with the safety car timing, as a few teams certainly were. Aston Martin, however, they seem to have, whether they've dropped off the pace or simply other teams have made a bit of a leap forward, remains to be seen. But Sam, coming to you, we are just not seeing the pace that we were seeing and the standard they set themselves in recent weeks. But here we could see a different story.
It was a big squabble, wasn't it, all the way through the season for P2. Aston Martin started out looking fantastic, but actually at Silverstone, I think that was just down to the characteristics of the track. It's a high-speed, high-downforce track. There's not really any slow, twiddly bits apart from the first couple of corners. and it just didn't suit the Aston Martin design. I think coming here, where it's just all low-speed twiddly bits and nothing high-speed, I think actually the Aston Martin should look pretty good. However, the simulation data is saying that the Aston Martin is only going to be a midfield car, and this is where I struggle sometimes with our simulation team. I don't think that's the case. I think the car's got good traction out of low-speed corners. If they get that set up right, which they tend to, I think they're going to be right up there, nibbling at the Red Bulls at the front.
The Red Bulls as well. My word. Fernando Alonso actually won his very first race in Formula One here 20 years ago in 2003. Such is the longevity of that man's career. And earlier on when I spoke to Lance Stroll, he is also optimistic that we'll see an upturn in form and pace here for the Aston Martin on a track with a bit more twiddly bits. That's right, isn't it, Sam? Next up, Ferrari. And of course, with Ferrari, it seems weekend in, weekend out, we are talking tyres with Ferrari. But Fred Vasseur coming out after Silverstone and saying, we were simply too conservative with the strategy at Silverstone. It was a tricky one, obviously, with safety car, timing of that. But Alex, how did you see it? And do you agree with what Fred said?
Yeah, well, it was interesting to talk to him after the race. They basically have gone full circle from one end of the spectrum to the other, really struggling with tyres. They pitted both cars early in Silverstone and lost that magic safety car pit stop which you needed in that race strategically. But yeah, it was a difficult one for Ferrari, and it's going to be an interesting one here to see if they're brave enough to take the tyre a little bit further after suffering in a way which we've noted so much with tyre degradation issues throughout the event. They really lost out in Silverstone as well with the reliability issues for Leclerc, not allowing them to get the simulations done in free practice, which cost them in the race.
Yeah, reliability, tyre degradation, certainly a thorn in the side for Ferrari. They lie fourth at the moment in the Constructor Championships, but have been up amongst it, fighting for a podium. We'll wait and see. Charles Leclerc keen to point out to me earlier that he believes the new tyre allocation for this weekend will make a real difference as that battle intensifies, gets tenser and gets all that bit closer as well. Sam, coming to you for this one. They have fewer tyres, don't they? And they have to use them in a certain way in qualifying.
Yeah, that's right. They've got, I think, 11 sets total now of their tyres, and that's been split down to 3 sets of the medium, 3 sets of the hard, and 4 sets of the soft, and they have to give some back as the weekend goes on. But they have to keep enough tyres back to obviously to get through the Grand Prix, but they also have to use the tyres in qualifying in a very prescribed way. In Q1, you must go out on the hard tyre. In Q2, you must use the medium, and in Q3, you must use the soft. Well, that all sounds pretty simple. But if you start thinking up and down the pit lane, if you're pretty sure you're going to get through Q1, you're not going to keep back a shiny new set of hard tyres to get through. But if you're at the back, maybe Williams, AlphaTauri, maybe Alfa Romeo, they're going to be trying to save their hard tyres to get through that Q1. Then they get into Q2, find they've got no mediums left. The soft tyre, which nobody really wants to use for the Grand Prix because I think it's too soft for these conditions on this track, well, everybody wants rid of them, but you've got to keep some back for qualifying. And qualifying here at the Hungaroring is super important because it's quite difficult to overtake unless you do a Lance Stroll into turn 1 and do a bit of damage. So that's a way to get through, but it's not necessarily something the stewards like.
Great stuff. Pirelli are bringing the softest of the 3 compounds to this race as well. The tyre allocation could be really interesting. It's certainly going to alter, I think, run plans that we will see, as you mentioned, Sam, through free practice sessions here. Well, these drivers very much enjoy coming here to this circuit. Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris spoke to me a bit earlier. Well, Charles, after Silverstone, Fred Vasseur said that you perhaps had a more or too conservative approach, certainly to tyre strategy. How will you adapt that approach as a team here?
Yeah, we were a bit conservative on my second run on the hard tyre, but we'll learn from it. I think we had a really good meetings. We had really good meetings in Maranello and discussing about all of this, and we took strong conclusions, and I think this won't happen again. So yeah, it was a small mistake. I think at the end the biggest factor was the pace. We weren't probably as strong as some other races, but hopefully we'll be a bit more competitive this weekend.
Yeah, obviously a very different track here. The fight for P2 seems to have got more intense, with McLaren certainly coming into the mix as well, and Red Bull bringing upgrades here. How do you see the pecking order sorting itself out in Hungary?
It's a big question mark, apart from Red Bull being in front. This I have little doubt, but apart from that, Mercedes, Aston Martin, McLaren now is in the mix, so it's going to be exciting. There's also this new tyre allocation where we only have 11 sets of tyres instead of 13 for the whole weekend, which I believe we will see very different run plans for teams in free practices, and this might have a big influence on the rest of the weekend. So at the end, I think the difference will be made here.
Well, Lando, coming off P2 in Silverstone and a journey here with Daniel Ricciardo, no less, who is back on the grid. The vibes must be pretty good coming into this weekend for you. How are you feeling?
No, I feel good, yes. I guess I always feel good coming off a podium. Had a weekend for it to all sink in and just make the most of it, you know. So, yeah, a nice weekend off. Of course, a week of celebrating and then a week of relaxing, making sure we're ready for this weekend. And like you said, a little trip in with Daniel yesterday. So nice, good to see him again. I guess I've seen him a lot this year already, but yeah, nice to see him back in the car this weekend. We'll see how he does. But I'm feeling good. Yeah, I think we're in a good place as a team. We're performing well. We're doing a lot of things well. Taking some steps forward over the last few weeks. So hopefully we can continue that into this weekend.
Yeah, great results in Austria, then a step ahead again in Silverstone. This is a very different track, though, certainly to Silverstone. How do you feel the McLaren is going to go here, and certainly with the upgrades, that next phase of upgrades that are coming here as well?
I mean, we've not actually got anything this weekend with the car. We didn't really have that much either in Silverstone. Austria was the big change, so it was clearly a step forward. We've clearly moved things forward. It's tough. I think it's going to be a bit of a different weekend. We've probably not seen as many slow corners. So it'll be nice to see how the car kind of performs to them. It's not going to perform as well as Silverstone. I think we can say that already. We're not going to be as confident. We're not as confident as we were in Silverstone. Let's just say that. But you never know. I think it was actually a decent track for us here last year, even with a car that we knew we struggled with and so on. I think we were still like a 4th and 5th or 5th and 6th or something. So. Yeah, I think we can have a good result. Maybe not quite a repeat of Silverstone, but if we can get along those lines and still be competitive with the top 4 teams, we should be happy with that.
Great stuff, thank you. Best of luck, Lando. We shall see how Lando Norris and indeed Oscar Piastri will fare at the Hungarian Grand Prix on a remarkably different track to that we saw at Silverstone. Very, very low speeds, lots of cornering, very few straights. And Alex, coming to you. It was a brilliant result for McLaren. It was great to see them back in the mix as well. Many Papaya fans out there will have been delighted. Can they continue to ride the wave here? Is it just track specific?
Both drivers back in the mix. They'll lose out on those super high-speed corners here where the McLaren was super strong. I mean, even Lewis Hamilton following Lando Norris was saying, wow, your car is so quick in the high-speed corners. So that's the downside. Plus side here for them is their data through qualifying in Silverstone generated a little bit of, showed a little bit of power unit clipping, derating at the end of the straight. So they were running out of hybrid energy. Here, much less hybrid demand. They won't be doing that, so they should be able to take that bit of speed. Swings and roundabouts, it depends how those two factors shape out against each other.
Yeah, and McLaren also doing a lot of work at home in the factory as well. The wind tunnel is now completed. It should be online soon, Sam. What will that mean for the team?
Well, the biggest change isn't going to be about developing the car, it's actually about money. So at the moment, McLaren are renting wind tunnel time from Toyota in Germany, and actually that's more expensive than operating their own wind tunnel. So it'll mean that they spend less, and under the cost cap, they'll be able to reallocate those resources, maybe hire a few new people, as we hear they're doing, and that's what will bring the performance. But don't expect a new wind tunnel to immediately start bringing performance to a car. It doesn't work like that.
Great stuff. McLaren were out in force last weekend as well. Not a Formula One race weekend, but indeed Goodwood Festival of Speed. And McLaren's from years gone by were out. The 99 winning championship car of Mika Hakkinen was out. And Sebastian Vettel as well, driving with sustainable fuel in both Nigel Mansell's Williams and Ayrton Senna's McLaren, the last McLaren that Ayrton Senna drove. Really special, and he enjoyed a balcony moment to celebrate his career and indeed his continued work off the track as well, trying to promote a more sustainable and responsible motorsport too. Moving then on to Williams, Dave Robson saying that Logan Sargent, we're beginning to see the real improvements that they're hoping as the car indeed begins to improve as well. Obviously we've got both Belgium and Monza coming up, 2 tracks he'll know well. How do you think both Williams and Logan Sargent will fare looking ahead, Alex?
It's good to know that they were sustainable donuts for Seb on the Goodwood hill climb. His engineer Gaetan Jego actually has noted a marked improvement to how Logan performs on circuits that he knows throughout his junior career. So it's going to be an interesting weekend for him. The upturn in form coming. I do though think it's going to be a very difficult weekend for Williams this weekend. It is a low downforce car. This is a dirty downforce circuit. Pile it on. Don't worry too much about the drag. Drag a barn door down the back straight, who cares? And they just don't have that functionality on that Williams car.
I can tell you Alex Albon does agree with you as well. When I spoke to him at Goodwood, he was like, yeah, I'm not entirely feeling great about our prospects in Hungary, but here nonetheless, trying his best. Logan Sargent also spoke of James Vowles and what he has brought not just to Williams, but to Formula One as well. What impact does a man like James Vowles have on a team like Williams, and indeed a rookie like Logan Sargent?
I'm not going to say it's experience, because the previous technical director and team boss, they had loads of experience as well, and they'd won championships in other series. But James Vowles just brings this leadership in a very calm, very considered way that I think just really fits in with the way Williams do things. And the Williams team, each team's got its own personality, and Williams has got its own personality, and James just fits into that. And I think this weekend, as Alex was saying, is going to be absolute torture for a team that looked so good at Silverstone. And all that's going to have to happen is James is going to have to be reminding the team all the way through, look, we know this is going to be difficult. We know the car isn't there for this sort of circuit. But guess what, guys? Spa is next, and we've got a really great chance of something spectacular at that circuit. But I think also he's bringing this really calm, considered way of moving the team forwards, and he plays the politics game in the paddock very quietly, but in a very considered way. And I think he's going to try and get the cost cap changed in Williams' favour in terms of improving the factory. You get £50 million free to spend on a new wind tunnel. That's not what Williams need. They need some new computery bits and stuff like that. And that, I think, is where he's going to have real benefit to that team.
Should sort the car out in the twiddly bits, those computery bits.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what they do.
And actually, when you hear James Vowles speaks as well, I'm always so impressed by how articulately and brilliantly he puts things across to us in interviews, how much information he manages to give across to us. I have to say, Sam, you had a very punchy prediction about Williams at Spa.
Yeah, I do. I think that if you look at the speed trap data, and I've said this already on F1 TV, it really reminds me of 2009 in the Force Indias, a car with absolutely no downforce but no drag. They went out, they were super competitive at Spa. I think we're going to see the same for Williams. I think Williams has a shout for pole position at the Belgian Grand Prix. The only fly in the ointment, that clipping Alex talked about, the end of straight performance of the Mercedes power unit, that could be the Achilles heel for them.
There you go. That is it. I'll leave that there. Williams pole. Red Bull may have something to say about that. But who knows, we could see an Alex Albon pole at Spa. I spoke to him a bit earlier on about his prospects, though, here at Hungary. Alex, points at Silverstone, obviously on a track that really suited your car, and Williams were a great story throughout that weekend. Yes. How relatively apprehensive are you, though, ahead of this weekend on a very different track?
Exactly that. I think we have to manage expectations a little bit. I don't think we're going to be as quick as we were over the last few races, that's for sure. But let's see, I'm interested to know with this upgrade now, we're going to a bit more of a high downforce circuit. These circuits don't normally do us any good, but I'm interested to know if this upgrade has made these things better, or do we still have the same problems. So only time will tell, but I do think it's going to be very hard to score points this weekend.
And James Vowles has said in the press that you've got a leadership-like quality within the team, you're driving like a champion. What does feedback like that mean to you? He very much sees you as part of Williams' future moving ahead, as a leader.
It does mean a lot. Obviously, good feedback is always good, nice to hear and whatnot, but no, it's going in the right way. I feel like as a team as well, we're very bonded as a group. We are, I think, on the up, as I've said before. And it's good to know, obviously, you want to keep your bosses happy.
Yeah, that's ideal, isn't
exactly.
it? Great stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Best luck this weekend. Oh, I always enjoy speaking to Alex Albon. He does make me laugh. He was refusing to wear a cap in the media pen, which was making me laugh, much to the disdain of the team member alongside him, who was desperately trying to get him to wear it. But anyway, we'll see how Williams do get on here on a circuit which doesn't necessarily suit their car or their package. We're going to move on now to the last few teams behind us here in the paddock. Haas, first of all, we must say a huge congratulations to Kevin Magnussen on the birth of his baby girl, Agnes. Great news for Kevin Magnussen coming through. But for Haas, yes, it's been, I guess, a tricky season so far. Flashes are brilliant, certainly on a Saturday, Alex, and then it's all falling apart in the race as well. And of course, Hülkenberg's contract set for extension too. That'll be playing on their minds.
Yeah, they keep on popping up somewhere in the mix with Nico Hülkenberg. Maybe his new hairstyle will offer something.
Yes,
fantastic.
what? My good, he's copying you in a way, isn't he? He's going for the Alex Brundle look.
It's not advisable at all. But they keep on popping up at the front. I think the Ferrari power unit might help them a bit here. Punch out of the slow speed corners. Sam disagrees. Should we defer to Sam?
Yeah, there's one reason. You're not wrong about the punch out of the corners, but it's been punching itself to pieces.
What am I wrong about?
Well, one of the Ferrari power units punched itself to pieces, and I think that driver's run out of power units, so I think we're going to see a penalty for one of the Haas cars.
Okay.
It's a very good point. That's a very good point from Sam. Moving to Alfa Romeo as well, P9 in the Constructors' Championship. We really need to start to see something from this team, don't we, Sam? Upgrades, improvements in performance. Where do you see it coming?
I need a new car at the moment, the way it looks like. That they just, whatever they do doesn't seem to move them forwards. They're moving back through the field. The simulation data has them plumb last now behind AlphaTauri. It's really difficult to see how they can turn it around. They've got two good drivers. The design on paper looks pretty good. They've got that Ferrari power unit, but just doesn't seem to be delivering. It's their own gearbox for the first time in a long time, and I think that's part of the problem they're suffering from.
Oh gosh, okay, yes. Improvement must be had for Alfa Romeo. For Alpine, oh gosh, it was a difficult race in Silverstone, a double DNF, but it's been a mixed bag so far for them. Double points some weekends and double DNFs another. P6 in the constructor standing at the moment. A new front wing, I believe, coming here, so they're beginning to make more upgrades in a very strategic way as they do. What hopes do they have here, Alex?
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting race for them here. They seem to have a lot of straight line speed. We were surmising before the weekend. It's always difficult, as we've discussed, to analyse their performance with the differential in power unit through the field. Another big set of upgrades coming for Spa. They've got a new floor coming, so let's hope that does something for them. They've got to keep the cars in the race to finish first. First, you must indeed finish, and they didn't manage that at Silverstone.
Sound advice, Alex. Thank you very much. You can tell you're the racing driver amongst us, can't you? Excellent stuff. Well, of course, we must remember the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix. And if you need reminding, go and take a look at the highlights. It was simply a crazy, crazy race. And it was won by Alpine's Esteban Ocon. Earlier on, Greg Stewart's in the media pen having a chat with him.
I've seen some interesting photos on Twitter of the Alpine front wing, two peaks. What are your hopes for this weekend, and what can you tell us about the upgrade package?
Yeah, we have some very small upgrades here, but some bigger ones, for Spa. It's definitely great to see that, the team is pushing for developments, and that's the only way, we can get closer, to the top cars. We've been doing a good step, at Monaco, and then the couple races after that. And we need to keep doing the same because it's quite close, between all the cars. We've seen McLaren coming from, very far and being very far up. So, yeah, we definitely want to push forward and hopefully, get some good performance update from the car. Thank you.
Esteban Ocon there, very much looking forward, but he must also have very good memories here of this circuit and that brilliant win in 2021. Ably assisted by his then teammate Fernando Alonso as well, who was defending like there's no tomorrow against Lewis Hamilton. It was some race to go and take a look back, and hopefully we'll be in for some race here. And Esteban Ocon, Alex, optimistic about their chances here in Hungary, hoping that this sort of twisty-turny, slow-speed circuit can really suit them.
They're always an outlier, and they have popped up in the hunt, haven't they, at Alpine? It's always good to hear an optimistic driver. Sometimes it's half the battle to be an optimistic driver, coming into the weekend with confidence. And anything can happen here. There's some inclement weather potentially throughout Friday and Saturday, a little bit of a chance of rain. Sam disagreeing with me again.
He's not, he was nodding. I was nodding at him because I was saying you're going to be in the pit lane, mate, instead of me. You're going to be out in it.
Sam's going to be with his umbrella up in the pit lane, loving life. And let's see what they can do. Excited for them.
Yeah, great stuff. Predictions next then, please.
I don't predict rain on Saturday, but I do predict a Max Verstappen victory in the Grand Prix. Yes, it's boring. Yes, I know. And Jolyon Palmer will roll his eyes at me for doing that one. But Actually, I think it's battle for second and third that's going to be really quite spicy. I think Fernando Alonso is going to do something clever because it's Fernando Alonso, and he'll nick ahead of the Ferraris and get into second position. And then I normally tip Carlos Sainz to do something spectacular. So for once, I'm not going to. I'm going to say it's Charles Leclerc who's going to be third. But that means Carlos Sainz will do really well because I haven't predicted it for once.
Great stuff, Alex.
I'm going to say Ferrari edge Red Bull for pole. Because of the power unit punch, making the max out of the softest compound of tyres. Verstappen will scream through and win the race. Battle royale between Ferrari and Mercedes for best of the rest.
And who's the podium?
Podium will be Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc.
Yeah, over to me. I am equally thinking, obviously, a Verstappen win. It's sort of a prediction now for P2 and P3, isn't it? I am going to say a Lewis Hamilton P2, and I'm going to say a Sergio Perez P3. I think he will start to come good here on this circuit. And why not Daniel Ricciardo in the points? That'd be something, wouldn't it? Thank you both very much. Alex Brundle, Sam Collins, pleasure. We'll be out here throughout the whole weekend, bringing you all the latest from the Hungaroring paddock. Let's take a look at how this race weekend shapes up. And here is the schedule. We have free practice 1. First thing tomorrow, we'll be on air at 1:15, building up to the 1:30 first hour of practice with a 2:30 analysis of all that we've seen. Back on air 16:45, ahead of the 5 p.m. till 6 p.m. hour of running and all the analysis as well. I'll be joined by Alex Brundle for that one. And going ahead to Saturday, 12:15 for FP3, we'll be building up to the third hour of practice. And we'll also be analysing that one immediately afterwards as well. Then our pre-qualifying show, that's at 3:30, qualifying at 4 p.m. The post-qualifying show will be straight after that battle for pole has been decided. And race day, here we go, the Hungarian Grand Prix. Pre-race show will be at 2 p.m. We'll be building up to the all-important race, 3 p.m. and the post-race show coming immediately after our podium. It's a busy weekend and we hope you can join us for every single second of it.